number 177, suspension.
Yes, what you have before you is the board did hear this at the last board meeting, and there was a unanimous decision by the board to move forward with suspending the policy. Council did recommend that it be brought back at a future meeting, so there's public notice and there's some provisions that we need to make sure we cover all of them. What you have before you basically is the ordinance, which would rescind ordinance 177. Suspend ordinance 177. Part of the discussion last time was also, I believe Director Martin brought it up, was a future point for discussion on refunds. Instead of dragging this out 2 or 3 or 4 more board meetings, this is on page 19 of your board packet, by the way. We just went ahead and added the provision in there for the board's consideration in the resolution. If they want to refund it, those 2 projects, as noted, the 2 projects are Parkview on Chinaberry and called Lagos San Marcos. Both of those projects have been accepted and they've been occupied. The developer is done and gone, it's completed. Those 2 projects are the only 2 that we have actually collected the fees on. It's up to the board's discretion if they want to leave that provision in the ordinance or take it out. And other than that, be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Are there any questions? Director Martin?
So much a question, but it is a question, but it's also I look forward to getting this because I wanted to see how it was written. I guess my questions are, the background seems relatively short in that if you weren't on the board and you weren't in on those many conversations that we had in 2013, absolutely none of them is showing his background here because if I remember correctly, and I've been wrong, staff certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was beginning in 2013, we had 2 or more workshops. It was brought up at 2 or more board meetings because at the time there was a lawsuit over this that had been filed, and I think a majority of the board, I could be wrong, I only know what I thought, is that if we could make this a public conversation, we could somehow save a lot of ratepayers money by coming to some type of agreement on it. And I think that that's what was accomplished. There was a settlement agreement, and we were out of the lawsuit. None of that is mentioned here in background, which I think to a new board member would be appropriate for them to know, unless they got it under separate cover, I don't know. But that there was a lot more dialogue than just how it got passed. It's been brought up before with a lot of questions. So, I don't know if you normally do that or not.
No, what you had was last board meeting, a presentation was made by Engineer Gumpel. He went through the 4 years preceding the policy on all the meetings we had. There were over 26 public meetings. The board did have 2 meetings, which he had listed in that presentation last time. The lawsuit isn't really, in all reality, relevant to the topic at hand. The lawsuit was filed. The board gave me direction 2 years ago to settle that lawsuit if we could. That lawsuit was with one individual. That was not in regards to the policy. It was not with regards to anybody else in their service area. That was respect strictly to, I keep forgetting the name of the development, Mr. McDonald. The board did enter into that settlement. His lawsuit was dismissed. That was the only action taken by anybody against the district, whether it be the BIA, another developer, or anybody else. So that was not referenced in Engineer Gumpel's presentation last time, because what he did was he gave the history of how we got here and the reason behind the policy. So you did have all that data last time to have regurgitated and put in a memo. I just didn't feel
And I don't think that lawsuit challenged this
It didn't
particular
challenge.
ordinance,
No.
the density impact fee. It did not. It was really related to the base capacity fee. And so that's why when I went back and looked at this, I looked at the history up to the time it was passed, and to be quite honest, there hasn't been anything on this particular fee since that time, except for these 2 developments. And then what we had a hearing, in January, which we had the public testimony in the January, which is referenced in here, 15th meeting, and that was basically when the board said, hey, let's, look at this a little more closely. But so that's why it wasn't in there. And I was trying to give you the shortened version so we didn't get too long of a version, but I don't think the lawsuit really was, had to do with this particular.
They sued us on the whole street fee structure.
Oh, okay, and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But there was a lot more than what this background, if I didn't see anything before, and I just saw this background, and I didn't see last meeting's agenda, or whatever, I wouldn't realize that there had been a lot of conversation about this over time, and it's brought up again 2 years ago, and it's being brought up again, so it's not just, hey, since we don't know what happened, suddenly it came up and I don't know anything.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
It's been around, it's been been problematic for the board to deal with for all this time, but it's not shown in the background. We
Yeah,
took that
I mean,
snapshot.
I could go back, we could go back and look at the, if there was other meetings that we discussed this in public.
They were shown, again, you're correct, Dr. Martin, we didn't put it in because it was just discussed at the last board
And,
meeting.
and I
That's
understand,
why.
I understand, but I'm
That's
just
why.
saying, if someone asks for a snapshot in time, I hope
Yeah.
we're giving them the entire thing in the future, and not just, well, this is how it was, because it doesn't give an accurate history of the problem that it has created. So just bringing it up to make that part of the record,
Okay.
that it's part of things that have been going on. Like I said, for a new board member, might be interesting.
Thank you. We have a member from the public who'd like to speak. Jim Simmons?
Thank you, Madam President, board members, staff. My name is Jim Simmons at 160 Industrial Street, San Marcos, Suite 200. Just one point of clarification. If there's any question that the reason that Mike McDonald came back to the district and asked for some relief through the lawsuit was because his project was going to be charged this densification fee, and he had a settlement that gave him somewhere between 800 and 1,000 units that you wouldn't have to pay the fee for. So it was a direct, I don't know what the lawsuit said because I didn't read it, but I can tell you that's what motivated it. And that's what's motivated all of us to come back and look at this. You suspended it last time, and now you're taking a direct action to suspend it or repeal it. I don't know why you'd suspend it. Maybe you just repeal it. But what the bottom line is that you need to make some findings. You have to decide what it is, what the reason you're doing it. And you know, if you have a study that says you need it, and that study's based on data that isn't necessarily up to date, it's been acknowledged by your staff and by the board on several occasions, both publicly and privately, that when you get through with your new master plan, that it'll probably go away because the justification doesn't exist. So we're asking for that to happen now, and for some language to be created that makes it clear to people who are preparing environmental documentation for projects to go forward in, that are within your district, that require some justification to move forward. In other words, if the claim is going to be you've done away with this, or you've suspended this ordinance, and therefore you don't collect the fee, and therefore there is no mitigation for the impact to your wastewater system, then all you've simply done is stop everything that's going to move forward for the next whatever time until you get through with your 2015 plan. So the request that we have is that you, and I provided some language to the board and to the staff earlier this evening that would accomplish it, that you acknowledge the change conditions, why you're suspending this, and allow projects that aren't going to pay it to move forward. You do have capacity through 2030, 2035. If you don't take the most conservative position you can possibly take, and that is that Sandag's numbers are right, and that your numbers are right, and that there will be no sewer treatment in those timeframes. Well, that's never been the case. We argued this the last time. BIA made a pretty good presentation that those numbers aren't accurate. And as I said, there's been acknowledgement by the staff and the board that when the 215 master plan is done, that this will probably go away. We need to have that language, or we haven't really accomplished anything, other than suspend the fee. If you can't build your project, it doesn't really accomplish much. You don't have to spend the fee, but you can't build your project either. So we need to find a common ground here where we can make some headway. And you may not be able to solve it tonight. Maybe you need your staff to look at the Atkins report and some of the data that we now have and see whether or not they can give you the proper justification to be able to move this forward. But that's going to be a real concern if it's simply suspended and the staff and the board maintain the position that therefore there is no mitigation for the impacts to sewer in the future, and other projects that are going to would require it can't get it. I'll answer any questions.
There's nothing in here that would stop projects going forward. This basically just relates to this density impact fee. We still have a wastewater impact fee. We still have a water capacity fee. And this doesn't have anything, this would not preclude projects from moving forward
Well,
at all.
it does. And the reason it does is because there's a letter that's been submitted to the city of San Marcos from your request to justify the annexation of the Highlands project.
If I might, that was done before the board considered this new policy, and that was based on past policy. So we need to be clear, what Mr. Simmons is speaking of was a letter issued under normal criteria that we did under the prior policy. So let's not confuse the two.
All right, well, if that's going to be changed,
Explain, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
This was brought up, and what we've been doing, again, the whole purpose behind this policy was to allow for mitigation of impacts. The project that Mr. Simmons is referring to, because I heard about this a week or two ago, was in respect to a letter that we've already turned into the city that was under this policy. Now, Mr. Simmons' policy project also includes land that's not within our sphere of influence. So there's land within that development that has to be annexed or added to our sphere of influence. So you have something else to consider there on impacts. But what he's talking about is right now, if we were to do a study, we do a water and sewer study for every project that walks in the door, period. It identifies their impact, it identifies water improvements, sewer improvements, and it looks at every piece of it. And one that we look at specifically, because of the wastewater treatment, is wastewater impact because of increased densities. And that's the way that we allowed mitigation to be provided. So as indicated in the resolution, we have a duty as a public agency, as a responsible party, to respond to mitigation. What we're going to be talking about, and I've spoken with Mr. Simmons about this, is one of the off-the-record conversations he's talking about, that we have to come up with the verbiage that we can put into an EIR. So when they walk in, if they're within the master plan, I'll give you an example. Merriam Mountain. They're not in our sewer district, they're in our sphere, they're not going to be in the master plan. 2,200 homes. So I have to come up with a way that I respond to an EIR that says, you know, when they come in, we might have capacity at some time in the future. We have it right now. And I want to go back in time again just to reiterate with the board, the reason this policy came about, as I explained last time, excuse me for cutting in here, Jim, we were doing WSAs, the water supply assessments, on behalf of development. Okay, we have to do that when it's a certain amount of homes or a certain square footage. We have to do that as the district. This board has to certify that there's water available for that project into the foreseeable future. I can't remember if it's 20 or 30 years. We get to rely on the water authority for that planning data by law. That was put into the law when they did it. We get to rely on the water authority. So what the board's concern was, okay, you do a WSA. Let's say we do one for Jim's project. It's a snapshot in time right now. And then Director Snella walks in with the project, and we do a WSA. There's nothing in the provisions that say we have to add the cumulative impact of Mr. Simmons' project, Director Snella's project, or Mr. Elcar's project. It's a snapshot in time. So the board's concern was, how do we keep track of that on a cumulative basis so we don't get down the road in 10 years, 15 years, and boom, there's a problem. So what we're going to look at now, and I think this will be the verbiage I've already asked Ken and his staff to come up with it, is we're going to have to look at it as a snapshot in time and say, looks like we have capacity. The document will acknowledge there's more demand than the EIR allows for. It will be put in the EIR. It will be of record, and then it's up to the city of San Marcos or the jurisdictional agency to certify it as mitigated, as far as we can go. That's what Jim is talking about. We need to come up with that language so that it doesn't stop development.
any idea
We're working on
when
that.
that might happen?
What's that?
Any idea when that might happen?
I'm hoping by next week.
Well, yeah, I don't see anything.
I don't see it being a big deal.
This doesn't stop anything. This is simply a fee that's no longer going to be charged. And we're in the process of working on a master plan that's going to address the impacts, which we talked about the other night, which we were talking about having capacity based upon the models that we currently have until 2030. We're talking 15 years down the road. Now, there's some projects like Merriam Mountain that may come in and affect this. There may be some other projects, and we have to address those in our master plan as we move along, and we certainly will. I mean, the will serve letters that he's talking about are, yes, will serve we have capacity. There may be facilities that need to be built in order to address, and to serve that. But we certainly have, both on the water and sewer side right now, for the foreseeable future, capacity to be able to, to address the development process. So, I'm not sure what you're getting at. This is simply
Well,
suspending
let me make it clear
the
what I
charge.
mean. I think-
These impacts have to, I agree with you, the impacts have to be addressed, but we won't be holding up anything with
Well-
respect to your projects coming forward.
What has to be addressed clearly, and I assume now after hearing what Dennis had to say will be, is that you do have capacity now. And what this fee was designed to do was to protect the capacity in the future. So people who had densities over and above the general plan density would pay a fee for that privilege, so you would have money to build in the future to meet the general plan densities. Well, what we're saying is, that's all well and good, but you have capacity now, and it isn't clear that you'll need the capacity in the future. And so if you don't, then you should allocate it now without having to have people coming on board now with extra density to pay that fee. And I think there was some consensus on the board in the last time around that that was going to happen. It sounds like Dennis is going to try to strike some language that will work. We'll work with the staff to get to where we need to be. So appreciate you doing it.
Yeah, I mean, these are policy decisions that you're gonna make as to exactly whether we're gonna pay for this capacity earlier, or we're gonna have the developer pay for that a little bit later. But those are things that ultimately, that's a policy you get to decide. You can't have your cake and eat it too, in the sense that these things are gonna have to come to you, and you're gonna have to make these decisions. But we're confident, I think, from a staff level, that we can address in our master plan, the fees and charges that are gonna be necessary to keep this capacity going in the future.
I'm satisfied that the staff's on the right track.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons.
And I'm glad this has worked out, because it's been all worked out, because there was some confusion that occurred at the end of the last meeting, and I thought it went against the spirit of the motion that President Evans had made and that we voted 5-0 on. But to Jeff's comment about pay for it now or pay for it later, I can tell you just from one board member's perspective is, what I heard after 4.5 hours last meeting is that, what I came away with is that they are paying for it now. And they're paying it for it within their wastewater capacity fees. And they're paying off debt that we currently have. So I don't want to give the perception out there that developers are not paying their fair share, because I really do believe they are.
Okay, we have, Director Martin.
My concern is punitive damages being inflicted upon developers. I'm hearing that that's not the case, and that you're gonna have your answers next week. But I too heard some remarks that were being made at City Hall, not by this staff, but by staff of the Vallecitos Water District, and it was hearsay, but I heard some pretty negative things about the future of San Marcos and its building experience, which could have come from that person, could have come from higher up, who knows, but not in the spirit of what this board asked at the last meeting. So I just want to make sure that doesn't continue and that development goes along and everybody's happy.
I'll address that briefly, Director Martin. It's real easy to stand on that side of that podium and make statements. It's very easy to stand up there and say it's not fair. It's very easy to stand up there and say, no, we've paid our fair share. And their investment now is walking into this board and making a statement. If you were involved in that process at lawsuit, I'll tell you, their whole case was 2 pieces of paper. Okay, the board had a $500,000 study that justified everything here. Yet all you've heard is, we don't like it, we think we're paying our fair share. If they're sour grapes, and I think that's the expression you made to me last time, no, there's no sour grapes. It's a board policy. I did what the board told me to do prior to it. We spent a lot of money. We went through over 26 public meetings. They had their own CPA firm come in and do an analysis of our fees. They didn't find any fault with it. You didn't hear the BIA say that. They had their own firm go through and completely dissect that fee study. They just said, you need to change your interest rates, you need to change a few things. So I don't say there's any sour grapes here. What I'm saying is that it changes the whole process of what this board is doing from plan to the future. And the reason that they can stand out there and say, you got plenty of capacity in the future is because of the board being proactive in building what they need to build. Okay, so when I hold this piece of paper, I'm not saying sour grapes. It's Miriam Mountain comes in. They will be coming in after the master plan is done. Keep that in mind. So for the next 5 years, they're not part of us. They don't exist. They're not considered anything. So when we write an availability letter, we as this district have to put a statement in there that either capacity is reasonably available or it's not available. That's it. That's what I was saying. We have to take that stand. And if the stand of the district is going to be first come, first serve, it looks like we have it, let's move on. That's a piece of cake. So it makes things very simple for us.
But it does address your question, Mike, that it does have greater impacts down the road for development. It can get to do an expansion at Encina if that happens. And if these things come in, it's gonna be very, very expensive. And part of the thing that we've done over the years as a district is plan for the future and make sure, because this has been a growing area, that we had whether it was at Encina or, you know, the reservoirs that were necessary or things like that, that we were trying to keep you know, looking at that down the road as far as we could.
And if we don't need more capacity, that's great.
That's,
Yeah.
so,
Director
Madam Chair.
Sanella.
and I'm glad this conversation's taking place because it's the way that sometimes staff, Dennis and Jeff, that you present things, just like now, Dennis, you had said that we basically took into account what a couple of speakers, maybe a dozen speakers last week, our last board meeting said, and came to us, we made a decision. That's not true, Dennis. What you failed to mention is that I asked for a one-on-one meeting with you. We had a one-on-one meeting. I told you what I wanted to talk about before we had that meeting. I heard your side of the story. I took that into account. I heard the public side of the story. And what the motion was is, hey, there's still a lot of assumptions here. There's a lot of weird calculations that nobody really understands. And so let's just hit the brakes a little bit, take a time out, suspend the ordinance while we figure this all out. I don't think that's unreasonable, and I don't think it was the way that you just presented it right there.
Well, I would disagree with that, but I'll make note that in the future, if I ask the question, it'll be a little more clear.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay,
I have a question.
Director Martin.
I remember during our discussions of 2013, we talked of a parallel outfall or
Yes.
parallel, or the possibility or non-possibility of a parallel outfall. Maybe we'll need it, maybe we won't. Do we have a CIP project? Do we have a CIP number? Do we have that on our radar
It's in the
screen?
current budget right now. It's a $26 million project.
But is the CIP, what, there's a project all laid out that we're going
James,
to be
could
doing?
you, James address that?
Director Martin, currently it's in about $28 million in our CIP. Right now, we're in the planning stages. We're also in negotiation standings because it's a very complex project because there's actually 3 agencies involved in the west side. What we have is what we call the east outfall and the west outfall. East outfall is basically east of El Camino Real, and it's 100% Vallecitos. West outfall, you have Buena and City of Carlsbad. So we're working with Buena, we're working with City of Carlsbad, 3 agencies.
And Vista.
And Vista, and City of Vista. And also, we're also planning in the planning stages for the east outfall. All those projects are in our 5-year CIP currently, and really they're towards the end. It's all planning numbers right now, because one of the things that we have a challenge on those projects is if we start the process, the environmental process alone, because we're going through mitigation sites and environmentally protected areas, will be 5 to 7 to 10 years just to get the permits.
And let me ask you while you're here, that's if we need it.
Yes.
If we, not the other two, that's immaterial to our ratepayers, but if we're gonna need that parallel outfall, and that's a big question, it's if.
No, the east parallel outfall, we already know we need.
Yeah.
We're not at capacity at this point, but the capacity is, it's a siphon. It's a pressurized line. So we know we need that portion. It's primarily a siphon. The west outfall, there's a lot of different factors with all the different agencies and what they're doing. And that's where we're in planning stages on.
Yeah, we actually peak the existing pipe right now in wet weather flow. We reach maximum capacity.
Thank you.
All right, so we need to give some direction to staff. Does anyone care to make a motion?
I would certainly make the same motion that we made last time. I don't know the exact words, I don't have it in front of me. But I believe the
This
chair.
this would
the
just be
ordinance.
to adopt the ordinance. That
Yeah.
takes it all into account.
I-
It would be suspending the policy for now until we get to the master plan, and it also authorizes staff to direct Tom to refund to
Okay.
successors in interest, which would be the current property owners.
So the motion last time was to suspend it. Right now, we have a motion, it would be a motion to suspend ordinance number
No,
177.
you just need to adopt this ordinance.
Oh,
Well,
adopt
that-
this
but-
ordinance.
But the difference, I think he's saying, if I might,
And
is whether or
we'll
not you.
refund the money.
Yeah, that's up
Yeah,
to you
whether or not
guys.
you want to
Thank you.
refund the money.
So it would be adopt ordinance number 177 that suspends the water density impact fee, and it authorizes staff to refund the fees collected from Parkview, Chinaberry, and Lagos San Marcos C-Class.
Yep.
Yes,
That's the motion.
that's the motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay. More discussion?
I have one
Yes.
question.
Director
I'm
Ellis.
sorry, on a possible refunding, with, who are the successors? Are they individual homeowners? or who?
We'll have to look into that, because I'm not sure exactly Lagos San
Well, have these
Marcos.
developed, I guess the question is, have these been built out?
These are built out and services been provided.
Right.
I mean, they're individual,
That's my understanding.
yeah.
It would go, doesn't it go back to the person that pays the fees?
Well, it goes back to the developer or to the successor to the developer.
Related.
And the
That's
homeowner,
really a-
the homeowner really bought it.
The
You pay for the
homeowner,
price of the house.
Theoretically, it's in the cost.
Yeah.
yeah,
So-
but it's gonna go back to the
So it's
developer.
going back to the developer or their successor?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the way the ordinance is written right now. If the board directed us to refund it, or if they said, that was collected when it was there, keep it and move on, or
Yeah.
Okay, the motion stands. So, if you'd like a roll call vote.
And this will be ordinance 193. Director Elgar,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Snella,
Yes.
Director Evans.
Yes.
thank you. Somebody grab Jim if he's still
Okay.
awake.
Moving
Thank you.
on. Thank you. To item 2.3, adoption of resolution ordering the annexation of certain properties, and it looks like we will have Mr. Gumpel.
Yeah, I'll wait for Director Hernandez before I start.
Oh, I'm so sorry, yes, I forgot all about.
Oh, we forgot all about you.
Good news and bad news, Jim.
I apologize. Welcome back.
Thank you. I took a little nap while I was out there.
Yeah.
Really
Good, you're refreshed.
refreshed.
Turn it off? Okay. Yeah, it's off.
Are you able to see the map on the screen?
No, it's black.
Well, you just have to take my word for it. Just gotta trust me on this one.
So, yeah,
Aren't we switching to a new system?
There we go. Yeah, we're in the middle of design.
Thank you.
Okay, this. Madam Chair, members of the board, this item starts on page 23 of your packet. And this one here, as some of the board members may recall, there was a property a couple properties that was discovered by the city of Escondido during routine maintenance, that they were illegally connected to the city's sewer system. The board actually took action on the annexation back in September of 2012 on this. However, due to a financial hardship, the annexation has been delayed. Now that the process has finally come through and all fees have been collected and paid, staff is recommending adoption of the resolution, which will complete also the annexation.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and
Second.
a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously.
You may recall the board adopted a emergency resolution a while back that allowed this kind of case. When they don't have the money, they can connect, and then we work with them over time to get them connected and everything else. And that's what was used with these two ladies to get them connected and work through the process.
Thank you, nice policy. Oh, we do, thank you. Okay, roll call vote.
Okay, and this will be resolution 1460. Director Elgar,
yes.
Director Hernandez,
Yes.
Director Martin.
Yes.
Director Snella,
Yes.
Director Evans.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 2.4.
This one starts on page 28 of your packet. This is for New Point Investments, a project actually called Rogers Court. and it'll be constructing approximately 577 feet of water main and 567 feet of 8-inch PVC sewer main. Upon completion, it'll service 3 single-family units, and the developer has paid all fees and bonds have been received. So with that, unless the board has any questions, staff recommends approval of the construction agreement.
Move to approve as presented.
Second?
It's been moved and approved. Is this also a roll call?
No.
No. Okay. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, item 2.5.
2.5 starts on page 31 of your board packet. The mechanical and electrical departments here at the staff here at the district have been in Building C. Building C is our shop, so they're not actually office buildings, and they've been in there for probably close to 7 years. It was always meant to be a temporary location, and with the, temporary for 7 years. And always intended that Building B, which is the operations building where the operations staff is basically housed, would be expanded with a tenant improvement to accommodate the electrical and mechanical staff. With that, staff has moved forward and received quotes. 5 contractors were solicited. 2 quotes were received. Visser Construction was the evaluated and determined to be the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. And you can see the budget on the fiscal impacts below is still under budget. So with that, staff recommends awarding the construction contract to Visser Construction Company for $59,200. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Question?
Yes, Director Hernandez.
The range from 59 to, what was the other bid range?
62.8.
Pretty close.
Everybody else was within that?
No, a lot of the other contractors didn't submit a bid because
Oh,
it was
I-
too small for them.
Very good, thank you.
Did
Question?
you have a question? Director
And I'm
Martin.
sorry, and I didn't read through this, I'm trying to now, but this part I didn't read through. What are you actually doing out there?
We're
It's not
actually
just for office furniture? like-
no, it's not just for. We're actually going to be locating. It was an old, actually just more of a storage area and gym equipment. It's going to be a new supervisor office for the mechanical electrical supervisor. And how many people are on his staff now? 13, basically partitions for his staff members. So this way they have an area to sit, they have computers, they have connections. So it includes the HVAC, the actual structural to put the office partitions in, windows, and also all the telecommunications.
So is it a structure being built, or you're just
No,
doing
it's-
TIs within?
It's
the structure?
TIs within.
TIs within a structure?
Mhm.
And you're taking out the gymnasium, is that what I heard?
It was really an old empty area and part of the lunchroom for operations, so some walls are being moved within the structure itself. So it was an underutilized area.
We have a gym over in this building too, so they're not losing any
Oh,
functionality.
good, I wouldn't want to lose a gym, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, right. We don't get to use it.
Is that
Do we
open
have
to
a
the board
motion?
members?
Just sign a waiver.
Sign a waiver.
You have to have an ID card and make an appointment. We don't have those.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve?
Yeah, I'll second just the discussion.
Okay.
Just like, it sounds like a good idea, James, that you guys, and to Dennis and the rest of the team, that we're giving kind of a more suitable workspace for our employees. And I know in today's environment, stuff like gyms and ergonomics in the workplace are very important. So I'm glad to see that we're moving in that direction.
I think the staff is excited to have air conditioning.
Yeah,
in the summer.
they don't have heaters or air conditioning out in the shop, so that's
They were pretty.
There's no air
2015,
conditioning in the
I think
office
it's
area?
ready.
not out in the shops where they're
Time.
at. It goes from 32 degrees to 110.
I come in here some days and it's freezing, so I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad to see you get it.
Yes, I'm glad too, and I'm glad they agreed that it was a good idea. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks,
That
James.
passes unanimously. Now we're moving on to 2.6, process for the sale of surplus land. Will you be
Yes.
doing that?
I'll take that one.
Um,
Back on
Mr.
November 5th, the board it was presented to the board regarding the property we had in Wolf that was to accommodate a tank, and we had some alternate projects to take care of that area. And we no longer needed the Grove area. We maintained it to keep its value. And then the board made an action to authorize staff to go ahead and pursue a sale of that grove. But as part of the requirements and process for us to sell this grove, first we have to surplus it and then make notifications to, in this case, the county and the school district, and offer it for sale for use of those other governmental agencies. So as a means to be able to pursue this sale, you have in front of you on page 32 of your packet, a staff report from Jeff, our counsel, on the requirements and what we do. And staff is recommending that the board declare this property as surplus and authorize staff to send appropriate notifications to both the county and the school district as required by law. Yes?
Director Martin?
I've got a question. I think I asked this last time, but I'm sure you have the answers now. Do you remember when we purchased and what the purchase price was?
It was 2006, and it was 750,000. It's in. It's on page.
Page 33.
33.
Second paragraph.
And have we had it appraised?
No, yeah, we need to.
We have to go through the
We have to go
process
through this
first.
process first.
Okay. Interesting enough, I'm one of those people that believe when you buy land, you should never sell it. And I brought this up in the last meeting, let it go fallow. And eventually, it's gonna go up in value at some point in time. But you wanna go through this process now. But I'm thinking that it was purchased because a previous board thought it was a good idea, and it didn't turn out so well. Just bringing up a point, previous boards don't always have great ideas. Because this was a good idea at some point in time, and it didn't pan out. So I'm just gonna be interested to see if we take a loss or break even, or especially after all the years of trying to maintain it and trying to get a good avocado take on this thing, which I don't think we ever got, but I don't know. But I'd just be interested to see. So, my thoughts.
Any other questions? Director Hernandez?
Well, didn't I understand that our last board meeting, that we're planning to do a tank here or something, and then we don't need the tank because the other people seem to be getting along without a tank?
Well, what happened was the master plan at that point showed an additional tank on this property. But you remember, the master plan puts a dot.
Yeah.
And if you actually looked at the size of the dot, it's about a 6-mile square tank. So we kind of pick a hill, and that's where we decide to put the tank. So the highest points around, the best lot, that's where we buy. There was a tank required in the master plan for that area. It was called Wolf Mountain. And so it's the end of Deer Springs Road, so you see it. I think everybody's been out to it at this point. We hired IEC. What happened was the property came available. We hired IEC to do the feasibility study, and what the feasibility study said, you've got out of, I'm going to say 30 properties that were out there, they were all served with the exception of maybe 2 for a couple of acres. So you have a $3 million investment, or whatever the number was, and you had 2 people left that could pay for it. So what we did is we went back and, relooked at how we could serve it. The board already approved. You may recall we expanded Wolf Tank. We built tank bigger than it was before. We made the pump station bigger, and we have a cross tie that someday will come from the Highlands, not the Highlands. Miriam. Top of the mountain behind Escondido Country Club. Emerald Heights. Emerald Heights. Someday, when that development on the backside of that mountain ever finishes building, there'll be a pipe that comes from that over to this area. So the bottom line was, it was there, it was planned, the property came available. We can buy property when it hits the market legally. That's why the board took the action. And we no longer need it.
Okay, we have a motion?
Move to approve?
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and approved.
Question?
Yes.
Who sells our property? How do we go about choosing someone?
We'll be coming back to you on that issue.
Selecting.
This is simply just a procedural step
Yeah.
that you need to, as a public agency, declare that, in your inventory of property, this is surplus. And then we go through this little exercise of, hey, does the school district want to put a school out there, or does the county want to put affordable housing, which is a practical matter, is not going to happen, but we got to go through the process in the 60 days. And then the staff will come back to you as we go through this as to making sure that we do this appropriately.
Okay, at that point,
We'll come back with appraisal, and we have 3 people to represent us. Who do you guys want to use?
Stuff like that. There'll be a process.
Welcome. Okay, so the motion is to declare the property surplus and direct staff to send appropriate notices to the county and the school districts. It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to item 2.7, the resolution for financial transaction authorization, multi-bank securities. Will you be doing that?
We have, Madam Chair, we have 2 or 3, I think currently 3 brokers that we do business with. Basically, if we want to buy an investment, we'll send quotes to all 3. And this is just to add another one to that, but they require a resolution before we actually transact business with them. This one in particular allows us to do a lot of stuff online. They're pretty high-tech, so they're good to have around. But they do require a resolution, so staff is recommending to adopt this resolution so we can transact business with them. Be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. This will be a roll call. Okay, roll call vote.
This will be resolution 1461, Director Elazar.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Yes.
Director Martin.
Yes.
Director Snell.
Yes.
Director Evans.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. 2.8, resolution for district credit card policy update. It's on page 40, 46 in your packet.
Yes, thank you. This is similar to the one we did a month or 2 ago for our bank deposits and such. This is on the credit side to bring before the board, so the board is aware and authorizing and memorializing our practices and such and our internal controls for credit cards. There have been some changes in staff, so the names will be in, if you see the attached, this is on page 40 and 41. The resolution actually notes the people that have the capacity to carry a credit card and is restricted to just those people. So the resolution sets those policies and the internal controls in place and authorizes those cardholders. So staff would recommend that you adopt this resolution.
Okay.
Question?
Director Sinella.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to discuss this, or if this is maybe a different policy, but I seem to remember when I first got on the board, there was some questions about if the district participates in any kind of rewards programs with credit cards, and I don't remember if it was yes, no, and if it was no, I'm just kind of curious, are we prohibited to take advantage of those? And I just see that, say for example, a Southwest Airlines credit card, we fly to Sacramento between the 8 of us, probably a handful of times a year. Why not get a free trip for our ratepayers, every once in a while?
This did come up. It was Director Martin. I brought it up a while back. It was a little over a year ago. And what I did explain at that point is Southwest, American, Delta, those agencies, those airlines, they have individual programs. They do not have corporate programs. So if PAL has a Southwest card, but we book the flight, it really doesn't matter because we're paying through our card. None of our cards provide benefits. Same as Marriott, rest of hotels and all that. They have individual programs. They don't have corporate program. Marriott has a corporate program when you do a group of 10 people or more and you have somebody that goes in and signs it. But from a standpoint of the district, none of our cards provide frequent flyer. I did a quick poll way back when of all various agencies, and out of, I'm going by memory, the ones that I talked to, none of them have a policy on it because they don't get it. The only question that came up is if you fly and you have a Southwest number, even though we book it, we pay for it, if you have a Southwest number, you can give them the Southwest number and you would accrue points.
Yeah, I was less concerned about the individuals. I was just thinking.
There is no
maybe a
corporate
way-
account.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That clarifies it. I
There's
was
no
looking for
corporate
cost
account.
savings for the.
I've had a Marriott rewards card for probably close to 15 years. I still don't have enough points to get a free room.
You don't spend enough.
I travel a lot.
Where there was an
Yeah.
abuse recently,
I
was
travel a
up in Orange County. I forget what the district was up there, but basically there was a supervisor had a pretty neat little thing going, and actually I think it was totaled up into like $1 million in benefits over the years. And what he would do is that, they had a huge staff, And so anytime that they needed to book any reservations, flights, hotels, all of those things, he would use his personal credit card to book all of this stuff. I'll share with you the article in the paper on this, because it is kind of interesting. And basically, over the years, he really got a lot of points, because he would always pay for it, and then he gets reimbursed by the district for it. But that's the only real example of abuse that recently that we can put our
Yeah.
hands on.
And again, it was less concerned about abuse. I was just looking for a way to maybe pass on a savings to our customers.
They don't allow corporate
And
accounts.
the other piece of that too is that I know most of in the corporate world that I've been involved with, and I travel quite a bit, it's usually handled by like a third-party travel agency. Do we not have enough travel to justify doing that, or this is our third-party travel agency?
There is your third party. The way the travel policy is written, Diane is responsible for the 5 of you and me.
Is that-
And then Ann handles all the employees.
That kind of gets to Jeff's concern about that. If you kind of turn it over to somebody else, then you kind of mitigate your risk a little bit.
That's what this policy
Those kind of
does. It
things.
only allows it to be done on district credit cards, so we
Okay.
don't do that reimbursement. But
Thanks.
yeah, there is no corporate account. We checked with Southwest, Delta, American.
That's too bad.
I think those are the
It's
three
been nice to be
we
able to pass
checked
on the
into.
savings.
Yeah.
Are there any other further questions? Okay, this will require a roll call vote. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we had a motion. So we need a motion to accept the
Move
resolution.
to approve as presented by staff.
Want a second, please?
Second?
Thank you. Roll call vote then?
This will be resolution 1462. Director Oliver?
Yes.
Director Hernandez?
Yes.
Director Martin?
Yes.
Director Snell?
Yes.
Director Evans?
Yes.
Thank you.
If the board would like, I'll try to go back and find what we looked at back then. If you just want to see.
Yeah, it sounds like we've been there, done it.
Yeah.
You've researched it. Just curious.
Okay.
Okay. 2.9, which is on page 47. And this is would you like to speak on this?
I think it speaks for itself. It's, CASA has some board, I'm trying to remember how many it was. They have 12, they stagger every 4 seats. And this was for the, four seats. If any of the board members do want to serve on CASA, we need to supply a resolution acknowledging it to the nominating committee no later than March 2nd. So if any of you guys want to look at it, think about it, and dwell on it, and see if you have any spare time, we've got
As a
until
CASA
March.
Delegate, would you be interested in doing that, Craig?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so you'll get the information and
That's good, because Mike is already really busy. He's rolling his sleeves up.
Can I also clarify, can I also clarify that we will, then with the nomination, we will need to request 3 supporting resolutions for other agencies.
Yeah.
So that will
Okay.
not be- So that will be
the next
Yeah.
step. Thank you.
So if there's concurrence, then we will add Director Ellithorpe, and we'll seek out the additional support.
You have our full support.
Yes. Roll up your sleeves. Your talent and your treasures.
And, all
Move to
right,
approve.
Second.
okay, it's moved and seconded. Do we need to move and second this?
I would, just
Okay,
let us
move
know.
and second that Craig Ellithorpe will run for nomination for the CASA Board of Directors. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, 210, drought update, please.
Yes, that's
Pleasure
me.
of the drought update. Oh,
This was actually a carryover from last time, so we'll probably have another drought update next
Next.
board meeting to capture, we just processed today our results from January, comparing January 2015 to January 2014, so we'll incorporate that into our next drought update. You see before you, and Dennis actually, Director Lamb, General Manager Lamb showed this at the last board meeting. Actually, we just learned that Metropolitan Water District will not be at their board meeting coming up their committee meetings are on the 9th, and then their full board meetings on the 10th of February. We won't know if they will have an allocation at that point. It won't be until March or April. So we don't, all they did right now is went through their WSAP and actually defined what the base year is for cutback. So the base year for cutbacks will be fiscal year 12-13 and fiscal year 13-14. An average of those two is what they will look to see what are we cutting back, what's the base to base a cutback and allocation on. That's all they've done, so we still don't have cutback information on them yet. But then throughout this presentation, we do, and this was looking at December numbers. December was a huge month for savings, thanks to the rain. We finally had, I think it was like 22% throughout the region. Ours was 34%, I think, at Vallecitos, so that was wonderful. And we did, today we did January. January was 37% compared to decrease compared to the last January. And that's because last January, there was a January 2014, for some reason, there was a huge increase in production, so it made this January look better because there was so much use last January. But we'll keep continuing to look at that. And these are the numbers on graph 1 that we report to the State Water Resources Control Board. And then we also try to keep track of, and this was just capturing the year, comparing 2014 to 2013, and we finally dipped underneath. I mean, all the other presentations prior to this, we were still trying to go below 2014 year to date, but we finally came in a little bit less. And this was, to make the last slide, if you remember when we looked at gallons per day per capita, it was a very, very busy slide. So I just tried to capture just two components here, and it's looking at 2013 compared to 2014, and we came down from 2013, which is wonderful, on a gallons per capita per day.
Okay, Director Sinella has a question.
I can wait till the end. Are you done?
That's fine.
Just we don't, as board members, we don't live in a bubble, so we read news and everything, and I'm sure everybody saw it, but there's two news articles I wanted to kind of get your guys' thoughts on. One is that the snowpack in Sierra was at records low, which is concerning.
Yep.
And then I keep hearing about this, which I've never heard about in my 40 years of life, a Pineapple Express coming from Hawaii. There's this river of water that's in the sky that sounds like we got the Mississippi coming that's floating over.
Yes.
What's that all about? And I understand it's not going to really hit us here in the Southern California, but it may benefit Northern California. What is that? Is that associated with the El Nino, or?
Well, it's an atmospheric, what do they call it?
Atmospheric river.
Atmospheric river. Yeah, I mean, it's a phenomenon, and we sort of experienced it a little bit in October. That was an example when we had that period where we've got a lot of rain. Okay, so each year it's sort of, it can coincide with the El Nino, but it's a condition that sets up in the Pacific. And it either goes a little bit north of us or sometimes comes a little bit south. But it is literally a river that they get bombarded for, could be for a sustained period of time, a week or 2 weeks.
Director Martin, he went to one of the NOAA. The El Nino or La Nina is really cool because a lot of people study it and it gives them something to do. But really the bottom line is the jet stream up in the way up there. That's what drives the water supply. And what happens, like Jeff's talking about out in the Pacific, this water all goes up in the air and it just sits there, and then that jet stream can go south. South meaning Northern California, or north meaning Oregon, Washington. If it hits, who knows? Who knows? As far as the Sierras, I don't think we have a picture to show you, but we had a picture from last year and it was snow. This year there's patches.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I think that was in the UT today.
Yeah, that's
Or
the picture.
LA Times, sorry, the LA Times.
The general manager at the Water Authority, Maureen Staple, and her husband is the one who does the sampling. And last year when he went out, it took him a couple of days to find a patch of snow to sample. So it's
So
bad.
this Pineapple Express, because the way that the newspapers make it sound, and I know it's not very scientific, it's written at a much lower level. If an airliner flies into it, is it hitting a wall of water, or is it just going through clouds?
Clouds.
Okay. 'Cause they literally make it sound like there's a
The
river
of
up
water.
there.
No, it's a
Okay.
very, very dense cloud.
Okay.
But if I could add, the last one that hit, I had my car parked outside and it destroyed the roof. Those pineapples were really big, and they were just slammed. Couldn't stop.
And it's getting me hungry too, if we can
Yeah.
talk about water here. On the, for the gallons per capita today, we also did January calculation, and it actually came down again. It's at 144.6, this is the 12-month rolling average. So because we had such a good January in reduction, it actually went down from 149.2 to 144.6 when we look at January, and you'll see that at the next update. And then this is the one I like to capture that looks at use instead of production and on a per meter basis as well. And you can see at this is again a rolling average, so it takes out the seasonality. We're not talking about seasonality. And it's looking at the base meter, the average per base meter. And January's came in at 14.52. So it went down to we're almost to 2013 when we're looking at usage per meter. And then this one was the drought calls. We'll have to update this. We don't have it updated for January, but you'll see it in the next report. And obviously, they dropped down a lot. There's people not using as many sprinklers, so not much for people to have water complaints on, so that tapered off. And then the last slide is that we look at is the fiscal impact. Yes, people are conserving water, and yes, their sales are down, but about 2 million, I think, under budget. But most of our water sales are recapturing. The big part that's recapturing is our cost of water. So when we're not selling a lot of water, we're also not buying a lot of water. So that mitigates the majority of that unfavorable budget variance. We actually are ending up with a slightly favorable budget variance in our water fund after, this was up through December, I have to look at January, through December of just 0.2 million favorable. So there's other favorable budget variances in other areas that are helping us out. The 8.7 million you see available, that's in our reserves after covering the deficit in our capacity funds. There's 8.7 million available for both scheduled and unscheduled, so budgeted and unscheduled replacements, as well as unfavorable future variances. So not too bad there. That's all I had for you. And again, we'll give another report next board meeting.
Thank you. I believe Director Martin has a comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wanted you to stop about 10 slides ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My question is, and I want to thank staff for the update that we were receiving from one of Ed's guys, I think, on a
Shutdown.
daily basis.
Mhm.
I didn't get that last year, so I think that's a huge improvement. Thank you very much. It was nice being able to see that as a board member. Thank you. And the same token, do we do that 10-day shutdown the same period of time every year?
No.
It's
So
scheduled.
could that have something to do with purchasing? Because we show that we purchase, which means we're asking for water, but during that 10 days, we don't ask for any water, I'm assuming.
It's
We
production.
ask for a lot more before that.
Yeah, we
Have
fill
to-
everything.
forward to
yeah.
do-
Evens out for the month,
But do you start that in December? Filling up? I don't know. That's my question, is that kind of a false number at times?
No, Director Martin, actually, the water operations staff starts just a couple of days before the shutdown begins, and they're already usually about 75% full a few days before, so they kind of slowly ramp up. And then the last 2 to 3 days, they crunch a lot of numbers, and they usually spend the last day, all day, until the shutdown starts, crunching numbers and making final adjustments. But all of that water is purchased in the same month that the shutdown occurs. So,
We report actual sales, so that's what we use, not what we bought.
right, so.
Oh, I thought I saw a report on what we asked for.
Once production it is, but what it does, that's the one where you notice on the water demand that we buy each month, the number goes way up and down.
Right.
So you'll see a balancing of that because they do fill up a little bit extra.
Excellent job, and excellent job for keeping us informed. Some of the people I've talked to about it said, do you realize, because it was only not that many years ago, that you had to send out warnings and tell people, cut your use, and you don't have to do that anymore. But-
Luckily, we had one of the aqueducts still online, which
Yeah.
is about 10% of our normal demand coming in.
But you also have a lot more storage now with Twin Oaks.
Yes.
That you didn't have.
Yes.
So
That-
great job, and thank you for keeping your board informed.
Sure.
Director Alipart.
Yeah, I had one other question related to the production and consumption. What's the water loss
Yeah, it's
typically running?
about 4.5, and it's not lost, it's just unbilled water, so,
Oh,
and we're starting to keep track of a lot of the operational use. Ed supplies us with the operational use, so in total, between 3.5 to 4.5
Okay,
is
and
unbilled,
do you track that monthly?
monthly. Yeah, well, actually, We adjust it annually.
Annually,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it looks funny month to month because
Right,
of
so
the.
there's some variance month
It
to
goes
month.
like this month to month, and so, but at the end of the year, we true it up, so we get a picture for the year.
And have you seen a difference in water loss factors with automated meter technologies?
It's hard to pinpoint it to that, but it's not so much the technology, but it's the new meters that we put in back when we did the AMR.
You put in all new meters?
Correct. Yeah, what we did is at the same, not all new meters, but we were a little more aggressive with replacement, so that helped a lot too. And the same thing, we will have possibly have a budget item when we present the budget to move forward with another project, and same thing, we'll look at more iPro meters.
Do you know historically what water loss has been over say the last decade?
Yeah, it's, the highest it's been is about 7.5%. And again, you say water, unbilled water, which includes loss, but
Right.
about 7.5 is the highest it's been.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
when we hit the peak, we actually implemented a program of 2 inch and bigger. We try to get to those on an annual basis for
To
bench
get
testing.
under registering.
Yeah, get under registering, and then the new meters we put in go down to a much lower flow. Because the benefit of drought is you put drip in, but when you turn your drip on, you're dripping at a couple gallons a minute, and the old meters
Wouldn't pick
wouldn't
that
even
up.
turn.
Yeah.
So now the newer meters will actually pick up the lower flow.
Thank you.
And Director Martin?
An interesting discussion between water people. My question is 4.5%, I don't know who to ask, an industry standard? Or what's the standard? What's normal? What's average? I don't know.
Well, I'll speak as a former staffer.
There you go.
Typically, AWWA said anything between 5 and 10%
Was good.
was good. And with these new technologies, including AMR and new meter technologies, that's driving that figure down. I think most people are seeing below 5.
Yeah. We're running consistently in the low 4.5.
Good job, Tom.
Excellent, thank you. Okay. No action required. We can move on to 2.11, the quarterly investment report.
Yes,
If you have any questions.
if you have any questions, yeah. You have it before you. You see activity on page 55 for the month, and then on the next page on 56, you'll see kind of a snapshot of our portfolio. So we're a very diversified portfolio, and the maturities are out to, most of them are 2 to 3 years, still being pretty conservative, not trying to go too far out on the curve. You'll see a little blip up on the 4 to 5 year next month. But that's about it. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to address those.
Are there questions? Looks like not. Thank you, Tom. Excellent. Okay, now we'll go to reports, then general manager's up.
Oh, what did I have? I had something. Oh, it's in front of the Director Evans. We did show the size of the screens we're looking at, and we're going through this process right now. And now what we're kind of going through is, we had the green product that the consultant wanted to do. Now we're bringing that back to reality. The unit that is next to Director Evans on it right there, if you want to take a look at it before you go out, it's an all-inclusive unit, similar to what Director Elletharp and Director Hernandez have over in Encina. Very similar in size and scope. It's a all-encompassing, it's got a video in it. You can't see the back, but the back actually has your name and the logo on it that's digitally put on there. It has the voting buttons, and it also has turn on, turn off the mic. So that's an option to do that. A second option is to keep a larger monitor, similar to what you have. We would probably replace those. And then have a smaller unit off to the side that would be the button for voting and the mic
That would
as
be
well.
this?
Yeah. Oh, it's right there, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be that unit on the
This-
left side.
with this size or larger?
Yes. So if the board likes the bigger monitor and then the separate device off to the side, if that's kind of what you think you like, we're just looking for some basic feedback right now. We haven't selected the brand or models or anything else. That's kind of about the best that's on the market right now. So that's just for feedback from you guys.
No, Director Hernandez.
I like the larger monitor, smaller box.
Larger, smaller. And Director Martin?
My question is, do both of them move us into the 21st century of electronic voting?
Yes, they do.
Then I like the bigger monitor, to be able
Big
to see.
monitor. And
I agree, I like the bigger monitor, but I did have a question on the electronic voting. How would it identify their, I know like at the county, they have a little board, and I think it's the city actually has a little board up on the wall.
Mhm.
Will that be included? or-
There'll be something, whether it shows up on one of these as automatically
Oh,
when
okay.
Diane kicks it in, it shows up here. We're still
laser.
working, yeah, It could be a laser dot on your forehead, yeah. We're not sure what that is yet, but it'll either be a separate board, or I think it'll probably just show up on the screen.
And then one last thing, are they relatively the same cost?
Yeah.
The what?
Are they relatively the same
The
cost?
small box with the monitor is obviously cheaper because monitors are a dime a dozen now. So the smaller box does save money.
And then I would like to ask, will this include the monitor so that the chair has the ability to see who's requesting?
That is one of the features. Right now, I believe it's planned to be with Diane. So like if you're talking, there's a little light where the fuzzy thing is on the microphone. Underneath that is like if Director Eltharp's speaking, his will be green. And if Director Martin wanted to speak, his would be showing as yellow.
Okay.
And whether or not it shows on yours, I don't know.
So the chair would be
we'll
able to
ask
look
that.
and see.
Yeah, we'll ask
Okay.
that. I know it would show on Diane's. I'm not sure if it would show on yours, but I'll look into that.
Well, I could just go sit over there.
Or you can go sit where Diane is.
I was just thinking that. That would be great.
Um,
Anything else?
That was that, and then as for the board, I'll apologize if I lose my temper occasionally, or if I speak out of turn. Yeah, I do enjoy my job. I'm very passionate about my job, as I know you guys are. And the bottom line is I do look out for what I consider the best interest of the district. I balance that between you guys, between the employees, and between the public. So sometimes I kind of get caught in the middle, and sometimes I tend to speak my mind. So for that, I do apologize. But there again, I do at the best interest of the district. So especially to you, Director Snell, apologize for snapping. I do it occasionally. I think that's it.
Thank you. Legal counsel.
I'll be brief, take one, pass it on. Okay?
And that's it?
The, last fall, the FPPC adopted some amendments which changed the rules relating to a public official's real property interest that would disqualify you from participating in a governmental decision or a vote. Yeah, I think with the exception of Director Sinella, most of you are probably familiar with these rules, the older rules. We used to refer to this as I think the one I want to bring to your attention is the change to the 500-foot rule, okay? And that one is, under the old rule, if an official's property was located within 500 feet, so if a developer comes forward, for example, with a project and happens to be across the street, or there's going to be a line, or something like that, that's going to be an improvement that's going to be built, under the 500-foot rule, there was a rebuttable presumption that that it would enhance the value of your property. But it was a rebuttable presumption, and if it was something that, was just simply a line, a water line that was going in, that was replacing an old line, then you could argue that that's really not going to benefit from a material financial perspective your property, or it's not going to enhance the value of it. And under the new rule, if your property is within 500-foot radius of the property, the official must have an FPPC clearance before you can participate in the decision. So that's really the most significant thing, but there's a number of other things that when you get a chance, you should probably go through and sort of familiarize yourself with. And I can certainly send this easily in an electronic version if you'd like it, and then you can have it filed away somewhere, and if an issue comes up, take a look at it.
Yeah, but actually, the general manager.
Separate issue, I just forgot, under my report, I forgot something. I just wanted to get your attention.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, hey, Jeff, thanks for this. I noticed, I know like on a lot of the, on the property documentation as it pertains to the FPPC, a lot of times the individual's primary residence is excluded. Is that the case with this, or does that also include the primary residence?
That applies.
Okay.
That applies.
Now,
And this gets into businesses, let's say you're leasing a property, and I didn't want to get into the details of that, but it's in the memo.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Would you like the memo? Would you like him to send us the memo, the full memo?
Yeah, I'll just send it out
Email it,
electronically,
I
and
think
have
it
it,
would
it's
be good
easier.
for us to have it.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's it?
Okay.
Good
Well,
memo.
well,
If you would prefer not to have the memo,
Yeah,
you're
I
certainly
mean,
welcome
I think
to
4
let
of them want it and one
Jeff
doesn't.
know
yeah,
that.
I mean,
Real quick on the San Diego County Water Authority, much of what we've talked about tonight on the drought and all that was a great focus of the last meeting. But I'd received a thing through the email today, and I thought it was interesting. It falls under the turf replacement program, and they've just put out a release that they've just made a public-private partnership, so they'll be working with 5 various turf suppliers, and they will offer you, if you go through them and you mention, you don't even have to fill out applications, which is wonderful, because that's always a hang-up for a lot of people. If you mention the Water Authority program, you'll get a 10% discount off of both the turf material and the installation, and it's open to residential and commercial and public sector. So they're hoping this will really take off, because not only, and you can use it also in conjunction with the turf removal rebate, which is still available from MWD, and I believe it's $2 a square foot. So they're finding, of course, the biggest and easiest way to conserve water is outside. But what was most interesting also was they had a turf replacement program data of all the member agencies, and there are 22 agencies listed on here. And as of December 31st, this last year, beginning in March of 2013, that time period, they said they had replaced 504,000 square feet of turf. They've paid out $721,500 in rebates. They've currently saved 68 acre-feet of water. And they estimate, and I didn't quite understand that the wording is, they estimate the lifetime savings over 10 years with the maximum number of sites when all the money's gone, and they're estimating they will have saved 1,350 acre-feet with the turf. And then, just out of curiosity, I thought you would like to know that out of the 22 agencies, we ranked 10th in number of participants. We've had 13 take advantage of it. I'm not counting the city of San Diego. I believe the highest one after that was 33 in Oceanside. And we are 13th in the amount of coverage, which we've had 12,574 square feet of turf replaced, which I think this is a great thing we could push, because a lot of the, there's 13 participants, isn't all that many when we think of where we're at. So.
Even with the incentive, it's a pretty good chunk to swallow.
Oh, it's a big chunk of small change, but 10% can help, and I think we just need to push where we can. If we do have some, you'll be happy to know that Santa Fe Irrigation just had 1 participant, and they were only for, get this, 1,300 square feet. So that, I just thought was a very interesting how we're working so hard. They do have a new program on that. How low can you go? I don't know if you've seen it on the sites yet about saving water as well. Yes.
Just to go back, I did pass out a press release. We did have a sewer main break today. Ed texted me a little while ago. They had it repaired, and I'm back online at 5:15 this afternoon. And they're putting the trench back and everything else. This is a pipe that I believe James is through design, and we're ready to go to bid on to replace it in its entirety. So the money's there, the design's there, and we're finally catching up to it. The only other thing, Diane's been reaching out to some of you to try to have the monthly lunches with me just to get together. So if you haven't gotten back to her, let her know so we can get them scheduled, so we can improve the communication a little bit.
All right. And now, Encino, oh, yes, Director Martin.
I have a question on that spill. Although our attorney would say that was a de minimis blowout of our sewer system, is that the same pipe that we're replacing now, or is this a different pipe? We're doing the pressurized pipe between pump station and Meadowlark?
No, it's different.
Is different. Okay, now this pipe seems to be outdated as well, from what I read.
This pipe was put in 1978 by Dayon Corporation when they were developing the Lacoste area.
Okay.
So we built the plant, and what we found was when they built this pipe with the pipe underneath it, they put them in the same trench, and they went like this all over the place. So it's really hit its 40-plus year life, and what we're finding is the corrosion and everything that we're finding that's causing replacement was because of construction techniques. So this goes from the treatment plant through up. It's going to go up Melrose and ties into the outfall. So that's the pipe that this thing's broken on us 5 times in the last couple of years. That's the one we've talked about.
No, I know, and my question is this, I hate to sound like the city of San Diego. When it bursts it's obsolete and we'll fix it. Don't we have a plan to replace these things
Mhm.
during their obsolescence?
This
And
one is
wasn't
actually, this is a little, probably 10 to 15 years before what I would consider it even having a problem, because it is ductile iron, it is a metal pipe, which means it corrodes. I would say probably 80% of our pipes that we have in the district are either PVC or asbestos cement, so they're okay. The steel pipes that we have, they're cathodically protected. In other words, they have anodes on them that sacrifice themselves instead of the pipes, and we have an annual program that we monitor those.
Right.
This is an old steel pipe that was not wrapped, it wasn't built right, and it wasn't protected cathodically.
I'm just saying that pipe between pump station number 1 and Meadowlark that we are replacing,
Mm-mm.
I think aren't we? Is
We're
that one
upgrading
that
the pump
breaks
station.
all the time?
No, we're just upgrading the pump station.
What's the pipe that we broke in 3, 4,
This
5
one.
in the last 2 years?
This one.
Oh, so it's the same pipe?
Yeah, yeah, it's the same
And
pipe.
that's the only place we have that pipe that was built at that time. We don't have it anyplace else.
Although we have the pipe all over the place, but this is the one we've been having construction issues with because it wasn't built by us.
Okay.
Yeah, all the
So we are
others.
staying on top and trying to
Mhm.
fix it before they burst.
Yes, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
just,
yeah, this is, we've had probably 5 breaks in the last couple of years.
and I've heard about this break for the last 2 years, and we still haven't replaced it. I know it takes time, but it's like, really? If it was my yard, it would have been fixed.
Really?
And it is, actually.
All right,
Our yard.
okay. Encino Wastewater Authority.
Well, Tom and I were at the board meeting, and it was an arduous meeting, don't you think, Tom? Whoa, geez, oh, Pete. it was-
2 minutes long.
Oh, right.
11. We had committees, and they sat the chair and the vice chair, and it was over in a heartbeat, so that's the report. We did not have a capital committee. We'll have one this month.
And would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would like to add Tom sat in for me because I was doing time up at the CST Leadership Academy. So
Well,
Tom graciously stepped in. for me.
I saw from your report, you thought it was time well spent.
It was.
Next board meeting is projected to be 6
Next time you
hours.
can go there for 11 minutes, so. All right.
Make up for
And
it.
director's reports on meetings, conferences, seminars attended. Anyone? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I went to the Costa Winter Conference up in Palm Springs. It was like a week or 2 ago. A couple of the other board members and staff were up there as well. I thought it was really informative. What I liked about it, especially compared to some of the initial conferences I went to, like the water reuse and whatnot, is that it was less technical and more just about vision and kind of overall direction. And so I was able to actually follow it and understand it a little bit more, especially when I went to water reuse. I was only on the board for like a month or so. There was a lot of focus on, specifically what I liked, and there's a few general managers that were part of a panel, and all of them talked about implementing performance metrics for the district that they represented. And I know that we've had some conversations as a board over the last year or so, perhaps planning going down that road. And Dennis and I, when we had our meeting, we talked a little bit about it as well. So I'll wait for future meeting stuff, but I would like to kind of see if the board is agreeable, if they want to explore that a little bit further.
Great. Any other?
I was also at that CASA meeting, as a few of the board members were. I got up there for the first session, and then the next day, and then half a session, for which thanks Diane was able to get me off the hotel list, so we didn't have to pay for that, and I wasn't there. And I always pick up things and get more things from talking to other board members, as well as listening to speakers, but other board members, other GMs, bouncing things off them. It's a wealth of information, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I was at the conference as well. Excellent. Ditto to whatever we said.
And I was there as well, and I'm just going to throw out one slightly different. I went to a digital communication, and I came away with, 1, they were very excited about it. 2, it takes a lot of time and energy, but there's ways to speed through it. And 3rd, they threw out the idea that they have what they call Throwback Thursdays, where people post old pictures about water, and it was one of their most popular things, so. I enjoyed.
Part of their outreach.
That was part of their outreach. Yeah, that was
Great
part of
idea.
it. Yeah, so it was they just had a picture of an old pipe, and then they had a picture of an old pump, and then people would fit. So that was kind of an exciting and interesting way of not being connected.
Chairman?
Yes.
I really like that idea, and another organization I was with once did that, where 5 minutes before each meeting, it seems we're about to have a retiree here coming up very soon. 5 minutes during the meeting was a little bit of history about the water authority, the water company. Just a thought to throw out there. Be good to have an old timer do that once in a while. An old engineer that knows both the city and water. I mean, some of it's very interesting, and we'll never be able to pass this down unless someone starts talking about it. So I like the idea of talking about history. It's good so that we as board members can understand, oh, yeah, they used to do that. Just a thought.
It was just fun how she did on the media.
We have other old board members around, you know, so I mean, and staff. Well, they're current, so you're gonna be retired.
Define old.
You be
Well,
careful.
it can't be current staff.
Okay, Director Hernandez.
I'm gonna have to excuse myself, I have another engagement, and then I know the rest of you can carry on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr.
Yeah,
Snell.
and just to piggyback on President Evans' point, I wasn't at this particular session within the conference, but it sounds like they were talking more about social media, and I know,
Social, yes.
yeah, I know Chris, since he's come on board, I've noticed an increased amount of tweeting and Facebooking, and Throwback Thursday is kind of a social media term, and so maybe that's something we can pass along to him as far as a suggestion, because I think it's a really good idea.
I thought I would pass it on to him,
Yeah.
just let him know. Okay, where are we? Are we done?
Other business?
Quarterly expenses?
Quarterly board expenses, it's in the packet, do we need to discuss it?
So we're required by policy to post it.
No. The San Diego Chapter CSD quarterly meeting is coming up on February 19th, and we need to, I think we need to, if you're going, you need to register fairly soon through Ann or Diane. And then there's an Aqua Legislative Symposium March 4th, and there's also is the same day, isn't that the Water Institute or something? What did I just see?
Yeah, there's a couple of them at the same
The
time.
Water Institute.
Yeah, you just gave it to us.
Urban Water Institute,
The
UWI.
Urban Institute, which is also the 4th, 5th, and 6th in Palm Springs. We only
A
did-
couple of them, the registrations, I think the next Aqua in Sacramento, I think it's now taking reservations, so if you're gonna go, the sooner we get it in, the better.
Okay. I think at this time, everyone has said no, but just, I'm not sure.
Which one's that?
The Aqua 2015 Legislative Symposium in
Does Sacramento?
Sacramento.
That's in March.
That's the one day?
Um,
Yeah, it's too far to drive.
WEF has one coming up too.
Yeah, no.
March 4th.
And I can, now say because we
We
don't
also
keep
have to-
corporate miles, I won't fly.
We have the
You don't fly
organizer
anyway.
will need to
I
think
know.
about moving a meeting. Okay, are there any comments or future agenda items that directors would like to put forth? Director Sinella.
Yeah, again, I've been talking about this for about a year now, and I know that we've made some great strides in this area with regards to metrics and district performance measurements, especially as it pertains to the drought metrics that Tom had just presented to us. And also, I think we've been getting some more stuff on some of the phone calls we've been getting. But I'd like to expand that, but I certainly understand that I'm only one person of 5. So I guess I would like to kind of get the rest of the board's thoughts on this. Is this something that they would like to further explore? And then if so, perhaps in a future meeting, we can come back and then have input from all the board members of what what data they might want to capture on this. Like, I'm not talking about creating a lot of work for staff, but like a one-page dashboard of some, maybe 10 different things that are important to the 5 of us as a team, to be able to just get a snapshot of where we're at in that time and how we're trending in certain areas. And if the rest of the board doesn't agree, that's fine too. I'm just throwing it out there because it was a big point of at the COSTA conference the last day. That's all they talked about.
Mike, could you give me a brief synopsis, seriously, what you just stated? What would you like to see us do? I was looking for something, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm a little lost.
So, and I didn't bring with me tonight But I did provide a kind of an example to Dennis when I met with him. But essentially, it's a spreadsheet. Some organizations call them a dashboard, but what we would identify, for example, they're usually called key performance indicators or even metrics that you're trying to capture. But a good example would be our Facebook page or our website. And one of the categories that the board may want to see is how many people accessed our website during the month. And that way, and then month to month, it's a rolling number, right? Just like a budget. So January through December, we can see. It's kind of a way to, in this particular instance, it's a way to capture, hey, is all this outreach effort that we're putting forth, are more people going to our website for information, or more people contacting the district? That's just one example. You could do the same thing for Facebook or for our Twitter account. How many times was our Facebook page liked? And again, we're putting such an emphasis on outreach. That's why I'm focusing on that. I'd like to see some data as it pertains to that.
So is what you're, I'm sorry, so is what you're saying analytics
Pretty much.
from the different things?
As it pertains specifically to
Right.
the website but there might be other district measurements that we may want to take a look at as well. For example, we would have to define as a group what a major incident is. Maybe it's like the pipe break we had today. Maybe it's not. Maybe that wasn't major. Maybe that was a minor incident. But then try to have a running tally of how many major incidents that we've had and how many minor incidents that we have. So at the end of the year, we can say, oh, well, look at that. We had 6 major incidents, and they were all responded to great, and that's super. You know, just information. It's data.
Scorecard.
Scorecard. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of along those lines, there's industry benchmarks.
There is.
For example, for brakes, so many per mile of pipeline or things like that. Not particularly useful to compare nationwide, but I mean, for other agencies in the area, it might be useful.
We already turned an end of the year reporting to the health department, how many breaks we had, how many complaints for odor, how many we had for
Yeah, I mean, that's
taste. We
something
already-
that could be included.
Yeah, my
in
guess
the
is
dashboard.
90% of this information you probably already captured. It's just a matter of putting it into a little one-page scorecard.
Yeah.
And again, to go back, Director Snelly talked about history, as the boards evolve. It used to be years ago, we kind of did that in an annual report on this and this, and pretty soon it was sort of like the water, all due respect, Tom, the water conservation report, yeah, okay, give us next month. And so we've evolved, but we already on an annual basis, and right now Lisa has been working with me, now it'll be Chris, and I just about had it completed last year, is an annual report. But it's an annual report from me to you guys, which is, okay, last year, here's all the metrics, here's the breaks, here's what we did here. So it's kind of a lot of that we're probably already working towards in this annual report. So what I think I'll do is next time, I'll bring it back, if that's what you're looking for, and I'll give you kind of an example of all the different things we already do. And that might hit 95% of what you're asking for.
Yeah, and I'd like to see the data kind of more either monthly or maybe even quarterly versus waiting till the end of the year, just so you can kind of look for trends and just, you know, that way you don't get into this huge report at the end of the year. But again, 1 to 5, if the rest of the board disagrees, that's okay too.
Well, I don't mind the metrics. I think it's a great way to be where you're going, and especially I think on the outreach, I sort of assumed as we got going on our outreach and what we're gonna do, we would ask that we need to know with that fairly quickly and consistently with, you know, on a, like quarterly is probably realistic on what's happening. Some of the other things I feel like I would just like to trust the district would tell me, that our staff would tell me if we have excessive breaks. Otherwise, to me, just knowing annually, I mean, it's not, unless we're having lots and lots of them, which I'm assuming you would tell us. Otherwise, to me, I think annually is enough, although maybe there's some issue we're not, because we do get reports quite often. And personally, one more, I'm not real keen on graphs and metrics myself, it's me personally.
And I don't,
So, to me, one more page of looking at is not very helpful. I'd rather have a big shocker that says we're in real trouble, or we did something fabulous like we did with the shutdown, or we did with the spill we just had. That's me.
I understand.
That's my opinion. Director Martin.
I think comparative reports are like I started asking tonight about the sewer break. In my mind, again, it's the same pipe 3 or 4 or 5 times, and we are planning on fixing it someday. When it gets through the system, we give it a high enough priority. We would give it a much higher priority if it was a bigger break and we had more residents yelling and screaming. I'm assuming, but I don't know. But what I'm saying is, so a report card letting us know how many breaks we had compared to last year, analytics. I mean, we're gonna get into this computer world. Mike is moving us in there, kicking and screaming. But we're moving into it, and I think getting reports on what it means to us means a lot, as I said earlier tonight, about like him giving us a report on the EDC. Give us a report, tell us what's going on, because otherwise, you wait till the end of the year, you're right. We have a tendency to have longer meetings, I don't know why. We have longer meetings, and sometimes when you get to the end of the meeting, which is this time, 3 hours in, we get a little rambunctious and ready to leave. So if we had it more often, maybe we have more time to digest it and figure it out.
You may also recall last year in the budget, we had an item that was specifically was a dashboard. And we had the software to build and start functioning on the dashboard. And we have staff now on board that is their sole purpose, their staff analysts. So I think, again, a lot of what you're probably talking about, the dashboard will be a monthly thing. It's on the website. We're planning on just putting it on the website.
Yeah.
You look and it could be year-to-date on budget, year-to-date on water sales, how many meters are this type, how many are this, how many of that. So a lot of that we're in the process developing. So I think the best thing to do would be, I'll bring this back at the next board meeting. We might have a real big one next time, Mike. If you're willing to push it, let me move it off a little bit. I'm just trying to balance out the items coming to the board. But what we'll do is we'll pull together all the things that we already report on an annual basis, and then the board can tell us which way to jump.
Okay, great. So, it will be a future
Yep.
agenda item, as timely as possible.
And I do have the spreadsheet that Mike gave me, so I've got an idea what he wants.
Okay. Any more comments?
Yes.
Director Martin.
Future meeting, I have on my list prepared for me by staff, February 15, the month we're now in, review of MQ proposals by Finance Committee with staff to select firms to interview. Anticipate to be up to 3 firms. This being the month of February, let's get our calendars out and come up with a date.
I'll have them contact you. I don't know when the proposals are coming in. And John would be here to give our staff, but he's sick. So we'll get to you tomorrow or the next day.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Snow.
And just,
Trying to look for my calendar.
it's kind of a weird thing to bring up, but since Dennis, you kind of broached the topic earlier, I'll echo what you said, and I understand this first couple of months of this year, we've had some topics that were lengthy discussions and differences of opinions, and I think we all kind of get going and we have misunderstandings and we just have different feelings about things, and so if I've come across abruptly, I apologize as well. And I think it's important for me to tell everybody here that I'm very proud of our district. And I do have a role here as a board member to ask questions. It's part of my job, and it's part of my learning process as well. But don't mistake me asking questions that I don't think that we're doing a great job. I think we're a wonderful water district, and I think we may even be the best. And I'm very proud to be part of it, and if Chris or anybody else is watching what I'm putting on Facebook and Twitter, I'm constantly talking positively about our district and forwarding what the district's putting out and retweeting and reposting, and I'm very proud to be part of it.
Good, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Anything else? Adjourn.